What's happening, everyone? My partner's Ian's keeping it real. What's happening, everyone, and welcome to El Chile Boxing Talk. We got Georgie with Off the Ropes Boxing and MMA, the hired gun of HCP, Run PMC, and the one and only Nopo Boxeanos. Welcome, everybody, for joining us, and JC's already in the house. First, as always, man, thank you so much for joining us. Well, hey, man, we got a stacked show. We're going to be talking about Golovkin here pretty much the whole way. Then we're going to be talking about Jacobs as well as we do the Golovkin versus Jacobs rescore. But what I'd like to start off with is a little bit of news. This is some big news. Cuba is lifting their ban on professional boxing. And as early as May, they're going to start entering the professional ranks. And there's a lot of details, right? But the long and short of it is this. This is what they've said. We will seek to place Cuban boxers in the rankings of all the professional boxing organizations for whom we have a deep respect. The boxers will have the full support of the Cuban sport authorities. They will train in Havana and will travel to take part in professional fights. Now, this is some big news. As you guys know, we covered some Cuban boxing here a few weeks back, man. We had nothing but great things to say about their amateur program, but now they're going to be going professional. So, George, what are your thoughts on this, man? How far do you think that they can go? How quickly do you expect to see it? What are your thoughts?
First, that's really awesome because I mean we know, like you said, Cubans and their amateur background or just their amateur in general is huge, and anybody that comes out of the amateur program, it resonates in the professional. So now imagine having the professional program as well in Cuba. That's gonna be awesome. I would say, usually when stuff goes official, it usually takes within the year. So I'm sure we'll see some sanctioned fights out there in Cuba, and which is cool because we'll see more talent too. Because there's some guys that make that jump or they take that leap into US. Some guys don't make it out, so we'll actually get to see more talent that were in the amateur in the amateurs or even the Olympics that were Cuban fighters that actually can make it now as a professional. And who knows, man, it could be huge in the future. So with that, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what other fighters that come out of Cuba, what it does for them in their future.
No, Paul, what do you think, brother?
Um, I think it's some very exciting news. And particularly at this time, we see other nations kind of falling off as far as their professional boxers. You know what I mean? They're not as dominant as they used to be, and I'm very interested in seeing this new blood of Cubans coming in. Typically, for the nations known for their amateur systems and all that, when they transition into the pros, you always see that, they kind of approach boxing a different way. And that's probably because it's two different, I would say it's two different sports. The amateur system and the pro systems are you know, two different sports because the other one's all about points and this one's more of a show. You know what I mean? People trying to get knocked out, trying to knock the other opponent out and giving a good show. So, you know, the problem for these amateur boxers has always been is that they get too much of a late start. As far as the Cubans, it takes them a while to get over here and to get adjusted. So they're typically known for having these very old boxers, who sometimes even lie about their age, because that's just the way it is. They got here at like 35 and they're telling everybody they're like 25 or something like that. And, the problem there is they start their boxing career, their pro career very late. And, they'll have a style that, I see this in amateurs. They want to transition their same style into pro boxing where, they almost still think that they have the headgear on and they don't, afraid to engage and, they clinch a lot, little things like that. You know what I mean? And now this gives them a better start so they could, just be amateurs till they're like, what, 17, 18, 19, and then transition into the pros. That's going to give them a big head start. Now we're going to see some young Cuban fighters, and I'm very excited, as far as this, there's a lot of things that excite me about this because, like I said, there is other nations are kind of falling off of boxing a little bit, but Cuba's well and strong, and we might even be able to get a new rivalry out of this. Mexico versus Cuba. We never know. They might just come in there and start blasting us off. You never know. They could totally take over, and it's anything's possible.
Damn, I didn't even think about that. That's very true, Nopal. A new rivalry. I mean, that'd be crazy.
We need it, George.
Dang, dude, that is
We need some
awesome,
more.
man.
We need some a new rivalry because you know Puerto Rico's low on numbers, and the UK ain't quite doing it, and the Eastern European thing. Well, it's okay, but it's like meh. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right, man. Damn.
Run PMC. What do you think, brother?
No, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, it's been a long time coming for the Cuban boxers. Obviously, we've seen guys have to defect and stay in other countries when they're at the amateur tournaments and like run away from the hotel in the shadow of night. So it's good to see that they'll be able to get the opportunities and make the money to support themselves and their families, possibly for generations to come with how big their fight purse is going. I think it's definitely going to be a process though, because as you see with like, even though one of my favorite fighters of all time, I guess, would be Guillermo Rigondeaux. Even at times, like I liked his style. I liked how he was a sharpshooter, but at times, especially later in his career, it just got where he held a lot, was moving a lot. Doesn't mean he wasn't being effective at what he was doing in a way, but I think it's gonna take a little bit of time for them to fully adjust, like possibly another generation of fighters, so they actually adjust to a pro style opposed to just purely working with the amateur style of just like trying to outpoint your opponent and actually like sitting down and adapting more of a pro fan friendly style that's going to appeal to the judges. But I think it's good for boxing. It opens up a new market. It opens up the eyes of the public to Cuban boxing and the long, deep, rich history it has. And I think it's nothing but positive.
I want to give a shout out to El Chido Boxing in the house. Plus, the Don is here, man. Thank you so much for joining us. Team Batman Boxing. Thanks again, man. It's always good to see you here. He says, amazing news. So much amazing talent in Cuba. That's for sure. And, Nando says here, boxing needs los boricuas, and I agree with that, and Nopal, you touched on this a little bit, but, I think there's a few good reasons that, I'll say this. Like, I think that Cuban coming up and being in the professional ranks can only benefit boxing. One of the reasons too is like I think this might give Puerto Rican boxing a little bit of a kick in the pants. Like, yes, Cuba could come and like they already are, take on some of the Mexican great challengers and champions, but there could be like a little friendly like island rivalry going on that could start up. I mean, Puerto Rican boxing used to be a very prominent pillar stone of boxing, and if Cuban starts to try to fill that void, well, who knows? Maybe I bet you the Puerto Ricans are paying attention. You know what I mean? And if they are, hell, like let's see them stand up a little bit, and try to keep some of that ground that they've had, some of that reputation. And I agree with you, Run. Like, dude, I totally agree, man. Like, I think it's going to take about another generation for fighters to kind of be the way they were. Cuban fighters, just like the greatest Cuban fighter of all time, Jose Mantequilla Napoles, who fought like Canelo. It might take another generation for them to get that way again, but I'm very excited about it. Anybody got any final thoughts before we move on to the next subject?
No, all great points and all great points. I agree with everybody.
Oh, yeah. And Team Batman Boxing says it will be very interesting. A lot of divisions going to get shaken up with this news. Arlan Lopez, De La Cruz, Lazaro, Alvarez, Andy Cruz, and I cannot wait to see how it plays out. We got Brian, the boxing historian 206, dude. Thanks so much for joining us, man. Well, hey, let's get right into our rescore. We decided to go with Danny Jacobs versus Golovkin. Since there's some news about Danny Jacobs fighting Jaime Munguia and Golovkin is fighting this weekend, we thought we'd go early on in Golovkin's career 5 years ago. 5 years ago, almost to the day, Golovkin versus Jacobs. Now, this was a fight that was weirdly a unification. So at the time, the WBA had a super belt and a regular belt. So Jacobs was the WBA regular title. And get this, like that was a unification between the WBA super and their regular title because they were trying to get rid of the extra belts in each division. Outside of that, it was also for Golovkin's WBC and IBF And if anybody cares, the IBO belt. Triple G was coming off a 23 fight KO streak. Okay. This was prime Golovkin, 36-0, 33 KOs. Jacobs was 32-1 with 29 KOs. And Golovkin was number 4 pound for pound. So this was a prime Golovkin. This was both before, like, both of the fights that they had with Canelo. This was before that. So, Nopal, I know you had some initial thoughts, man. I was combing your YouTube and I saw that you actually covered this one live, brother. So let's start with you, man. Like, what did you have to say at the time, and what do you have to say about it now?
Yeah, I got some pretty good thoughts about this fight. I know that when I first scored it, I scored it 117, 110 for Jacobs, which I can say now it was because I could say maybe I was a little bitter about how how dominant Triple G's career was at that point, and things that negative thoughts that I always had about him. You know what I mean? How he was only fighting like easy fights, and I was a little mad about him not fighting Ward. Because I always thought that was going to be the fight, and you know what I mean? Like I just thought that he had way too much momentum, and Jacobs went in there and did his thing. So I was a little biased when I first scored that fight. I basically gave almost every round to Jacobs. And that's just a little lesson for all of us because, a lot of the times, this is pro boxing and certain fighters have more momentum and certain fighters are also sweethearts. The public loves them and, there is other fans that are kind of like, oh, what? They kind of look at that. They're like, well, this guy already has the ball in his court, so let me shoot him down a couple notches. But this time, I was able to do it and not be biased about it. And let's see, I ended up scoring it a little closer. I had it 116, 114 Jacobs. And, I had 3 swing rounds. My 3 swing rounds were 5, 7, and 8, and I had, and then the rounds that those rounds right there, I just decided to score them 10-10 rounds. I know that they don't do that anymore, but I decided to do it because I really just couldn't give the round to one or the other. I did see that. I always kind of looked at that knockdown in the 4th round, and although I gave it for Triple G, I almost felt like Jacob like Triple G landed a couple shots and I never really felt like the shots themselves is what kind of made him fall. It always looked like Triple G kind of ran him over or kind of bum rushed him, at the end of those shots, because you could see Triple G's leg all over Jacob's body and then that's when he falls. So I always kind of was suspicious of that knockdown. I thought it was almost like he got pushed down or something. But so round 1, I gave it to Jacobs. Round 2, I gave it for Triple G. Round 3, I gave it for Jacobs. Round 4, that was a knockdown. So, of course, it was a 10-8. So round 5 was a swing round. I scored that 10-10. Round 6, I felt like this is when Jacobs' confidence started coming in. And Triple G basically didn't do anything that round. He almost gave that away by allowing Jacobs to get in there and basically dominate the whole round. And then round 7, I thought it was very competitive. That was a 10-10 round. Round 8 was very competitive. But again, Jacobs managed to have his confidence, and I scored that a 10-10 round. And then round 9, I thought that Jacobs did most of the work. And then towards the end, I started noticing that Triple G was trying to steal the round, maybe the last 20 seconds. But I still gave it to Jacobs. Round 10, I gave it to Jacobs. Round 11, I gave it to Jacobs. And I started noticing that Triple G didn't really want to fight on the inside. Every time they'd get too close, Triple G would go for the clinches. He probably did about 5 or 6 clinches in that round. Round 12, I just gave that round to Triple G at that point. I thought that it was a very competitive round, but I thought that Triple G landed the clearer shot. So I had it 116, 114 for Jacobs.
All right. And do you classify it as a robbery?
Well, just to be fair to Golovkin, you know, he had all the momentum in his career and all that. He was coming off of a bunch of good things, you know. He had all these, you know, so-called records, you know, all these knockouts and, you know, all these defenses, you know, that just piled up somehow. I don't know, man. I it's hard to give the fight to Jacobs with all that momentum. It's almost like Jacobs did a lot of stuff that was kind of like not good. He didn't always fight with all the confidence, but it is easy to observe that when he displayed confidence, he won those rounds easily. But I think, you know, you have to give Jacobs the credit because he exposed certain things in Triple G's armor. You know, like he exposed a couple things, and that allowed other fighters to, you know, kind of like go back and look at this fight and see that Triple G wasn't really this monster that we all thought. You know, everybody was fighting him scared and all that, and they were just going down really quick. So, you know, I don't know, man, if I would classify it. I don't know, man. Come back to me on that one.
All right,
let me
very
see what
good.
you guys say.
Sure thing. And Nando here says, has any other boxer ever benefited more from the narrative bias than Triple G? Shout out to the all too friendly boxing media. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, Nando, actually. So, Run PMC, man, what'd you think about this fight and who'd you have winning?
I just want to put a disclaimer out before I give my scores. That
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot. Yeah, you know what? You should, Run PMC. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I mean, so with Danny Jacobs, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call myself a fan with Danny Jacobs. I think he could be a. I'll just say this is that I don't always agree with the decisions he makes in the ring, but I'll just say that right now. But I'll get into it. So Danny Jacobs, I had this fight 115, 110 or 112, excuse me, for Danny Jacobs as a win. I just think this is the performance of his life. This is his best performance to date, and I think he edged Triple G. I had Jacobs winning rounds 1, 2, and 3, 6, 7, 10, 11, and 12. I had Triple G winning the 4th round because it was a knockdown. I had him winning the 5th and then 8th and the 9th. And then for close rounds, I had 3, 7, 8, and 11. And then all of those close rounds are 3, 7, and 11 were to Jacobs, and then 8 was to Triple G. So, but I say those being close, but I stand by who I gave them to. So not necessarily swing rounds, but just more competitive rounds, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think Jacobs had the performance of his career. I think before this, his career was lackluster. I think after this, his career was lackluster, but I think he gave it all in this fight, and I think he deserved the victory. I don't necessarily think it would be a robbery, just because I do have some swing rounds in there, and I could see how the judges had it, but I think if anything, it could be a draw, but I don't think I see Triple G winning. So I guess that might be considered a lightweight robbery in the sense of that I just think the wrong person won the fight. I think when I did this live, I had Jacobs winning as well, but I think I had it 1 round closer. But I was just more disappointed in Jacobs for sort of like losing focus in the round 4 when he got knocked down. I think he lost a little focus, and I think he could have been a little better in that sense. But no, definitely performance of a lifetime for Jacobs. Triple G definitely getting credit from HBO for not really landing punches. Danny Jacobs is clearly blocking punches on his gloves or catching it, or Triple G's hitting on his shoulder, and they're like, oh, jab falls short for Golovkin, but lands with the right hook. It's like, no, he didn't land either of those punches. So definitely HBO was obviously on the last of their legs for covering boxing, but I think Danny Jacobs won. I was pleased to watch him. It was good quality boxing from him, and he was able to exchange with Golovkin when he needed to, and he was able to, like, I know we touched on it before in the show, is he's able to sell the rounds where he feels like he needs to sell. Like, he might not actually be winning, but appears like he's winning, and I believe, like, when someone isn't doing something, which Triple G wasn't in certain rounds, if someone appears like they're trying to make the fight, or at least appear like they're winning the round, they're probably going to win that round if the other boxer isn't doing much. But 115, 112, Danny Jacobs.
All right. Thank you very much for Run PMC. So we have 2 wins for Danny Jacobs, but not necessarily a robbery. And then the Don, I think he's second note ball here, says, sounds like you had it a draw with all them 10-10 rounds, note ball. You know, Chilo Boxing's got something to say to note ball, too. He says, you could say it, brother. 23 title defenses. And Nando counters with 23 title defenses all held together with duct tape and wishful thinking. Damn. All right. Well, hey, you know, like you said, Run PMC, good quality boxing. George, what'd you think about this fight, man?
So, you know, obviously all of us have 2 scores, right? The first time we watched it when it happened, I thought the very first time watching it, I didn't score it obviously officially, but just from watching it, I felt like Triple G won the first time watching it live. And the only reason why I felt like he did win in the first time watching it live was, you know, that it's kind of like, you know, when we score fights, now like my perspective is so different now. Like before, back then, it was kind of always as well, the champion always gets the benefit of the doubt, and that's how I felt watching it the first time. For me, was Triple G had the benefit of the doubt because he was the champion. And watching it now, scoring it here with us, um you know, there was a lot of things that Jacobs did really well, and same thing with Triple G. There was, you know, I had for me, my swing rounds were 5, 6, 7, 8, and 11, and I pretty much gave Jacobs all the swing rounds, and because I felt like he did some good work, and I feel like he was landing the more effective punches. As for Triple G, um, you know, he has a really good jab. I really like his jab. He jabs really well. I think if Triple G actually went to the body like they were saying, like, you know, because it was a DAZN event, so they were watching it. They announced this on DAZN, and the commentators were saying the same thing. Like, this isn't like the Triple G you usually see, and he's doing a lot of head hunting. So I think if Triple G actually decided to do a little more body work, you know, we probably could have seen maybe a late stoppage, or him have more convincing rounds to give him. But I all in all, scoring this the second time, I actually had Jacobs winning 7 rounds to 5. In those swing rounds, I think the closest swing round was probably 8. Um, and it looked, I think it was maybe round 10 or 9, um, where it looked, I'm sorry. It might have been, yeah, round 8, where it looked like Jacobs got rocked a little bit, and you know, and Rozier's in the corner tying him like, yeah, we let this one get away. Like, you know, back to your focus, back to, you know, just walking. He was trying to finesse. I guess the game plan was to try to finesse Golovkin, and you know, and stay near him and not move so much, because they felt like if he would have escaped a little bit from Triple G, Triple G would have been able to land those punches on the end of him moving out, and that's it. Kind of showed a little bit, but again, first time I watched it, I had Triple G winning is really close, and then this is the same one for me. Like, now it was reversed because I was able to see a little more things better. I wasn't drinking, so of course sober a little bit. So yeah, man, Jacobs, I agree with you. Run, this was probably Jacobs' best performance of his career. After the surgery, after he lost to Ishida, which Triple G beat. And then after this fight, after the this fight against Golovkin, you know, it seemed like, you know, he kind of went back to being kind of gun shy, throwing punches, doing the very minimal. And you know, and what it is too, a lot of fighters show up to the occasion, and Jacobs knew the occasion here with Golovkin and what he had it on his plate, and it looked like he did for me. But and then, like, one thing I do want to mention really quick, I know a lot of us kind of have this thing where um after, you know, Golovkin fought Canelo. I mean, after Canelo, you know, he went and fought 3 more times. He fought Steve Rose, Derevchenko, and then Camille Zeramera. And I think of these 3 fights, a lot of us were like, you know, man, there's the decline of Triple G, and we saw a lot of us thought that Derevchenko should have got the nod, but honestly, I don't really want to judge that fight to say that maybe he is on a decline. I know he is 40 years old. Again, fighters always show up to the occasion. They know what they have at hand, and as far as Golovkin, you know, he's been wanting the Canelo fight, and like he said, he's like, look, I'm not the one that called Canelo out for that third fight. He's been saying my name, so let's make it happen. So I do hope that he does win this weekend, so that way they can get that fight going on, and they can finally, put an end to this trilogy, which I'm favoring Canelo. So again, I had Jacobs winning this one 7-5. I had 5 swing rounds, and pretty much every swing round I gave to Jacobs.
All right. Thank you very much, George. And too close to be a robbery. Is that right?
Yeah, not a robbery.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So we have 3 wins for Danny Jacobs with no robbery. And I scored this fight 114, 113 for Golovkin. I thought this was a very good fight to watch. Like as far as like a prime for prime middleweight fight, I really enjoyed it more than I remembered. And I'm not sure if it's because of the quality of boxing I've been seeing lately at the middleweight division, but 2 really just skilled fighters. And also I felt like it was a bit of a tactical fight too. You could really hear the instruction on both sides. They both had their original trainers in this fight. And it's always good to hear Rozier, and Golovkin's trainer, Abel Sanchez, give his instructions as well. I really enjoy hearing the corner work, which is something rare these days. And, I have to say, like, Nopal, you made a good point. Like, I felt like the jab was doing a really good job for both fighters. They were both utilizing the jab, and then Golovkin wasn't too eager to kind of stick around on the inside. Like, prior to this, we all saw Golovkin kind of being like the boogeyman and the juggernaut. But, when you watch this fight, like, it's like, Run, do you remember when we were talking about how, like, Pacquiao would kind of like, he'd come in with his head bobbing, and then, but after a while we started realizing that he's just kind of bobbing his head. He's not actually working his way in. That's how I felt with Golovkin. Like that stalker Golovkin, he's kind of like faking it sometimes in this fight, like because he knows how to cut off a ring. And I've always said it's not necessarily a fighter's job to always cut off the ring, but there were a lot of times where he could have come in more. He just decided not to because Jacobs was stinging him, and there were times where Jacobs would stand his ground. He wasn't scared to go toe to toe. I feel like Jacobs was taking Golovkin's best shots and realized that he could take him. Not that he was ready to go all out and go out on his shield, but I think Triple G knew that it was going to be a hard time to go in there and just knock out Danny Jacobs. Plus, he didn't like what was coming back, So I gave Golovkin, even though it was a swing round, I know you guys all gave Golovkin, gave Jacobs the first round, but I gave Golovkin that round. I also gave him round 4 with the knockdown, of course, 5, 7, 9, and 12. And then outside of the first round, I also had round 3 as a swing round and round 12 as a swing round. And then the other thing, too, that I wanted to make reference, and I didn't have a chance to mention this in the beginning, was how Jacobs had declined to do the same day weigh-in for this fight. So therefore, he declined to compete for the IBF belt because, he must have wanted to weigh in 10 pounds over, right? So he decided that it was more important to be at a comfortable weight the day of the fight. And then in the commentary, they're discussing this, and Max Kellerman says Jacobs didn't weigh in the morning, right? Making one of the belts unattainable for Jacobs in this fight. And then they said, no one in the end is going to remember who won the belt. It's who won the fight. And then Roy agreed, Roy Jones, and he says the win is much more important than just the belt. And that's something I agree with, man. And it's, something that I think is important to note, if you go back and you I've always said that, like the belts, it can mean a little bit, but to me, I think the particular wins are more important, and that's how I feel. So it was kind of nice to go back and see where, a prime, well, this was considered a unification, right? For the WBA belts, but like, a prime champion versus a prime champion going in there and just kind of realizing what's more important, like, a person could go back and watch this fight and it's like, 3 belts were at stake, but I mean, one less belt because one person decided not to fight for it. I mean, all that stuff doesn't really seem to matter so much as for who actually won the fight. That seems more important to me. And I think Jacobs made a very good account of himself, but it just wasn't clear enough for him to get a decisive win to where I could classify this one as a robbery. So I have Golovkin winning 114 to 113. If anybody had Jacobs winning, I could totally see that, man. So yeah, man, that was a great fight to watch. Does anybody have any final thoughts on this one before we go on to our subjects regarding Golovkin and Jacobs in the present day?
Yeah, I want.
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, real quick, George. I have to say that in these type of fights, in all these professional fights, your demeanor has a lot to do with the scoring. Sometimes I think that if you show weakness, the judges sense that, and even if you could have won the round, just your demeanor and your the obviousness of how lack of confidence and all that, and I think it all adds to it, and the judges see that, and
Yeah.
I think that you always want to, try to put that to the side and pretend at least, fake it till you make it. You know what I'm saying? You got to act a little more confident. I think that Jacobs was displaying a lot of stress in there, and I think some of those rounds could have went to him. And obviously, this was a unanimous decision for Golovkin. Yet, three of us four had it for Jacobs. You know what I'm saying? So, there has to be some people out, a lot of people that think that Jacobs won this fight, but I think that a lot had to do with his demeanor. Some people are just giving Golovkin rounds because he looks like the one that's comfortable. He looks, you know, he looks like he's not phased by the big occasion, and he's just walking Jacobs down, and that's what I got to say. All right, George, go for it.
Yeah, no, you do make a good point there, and that's, to me, I think that's what stood out the most was how Jacobs carried himself in the ring. The demeanor, and then you made a point right now too, Chicano, about the size, and you can see like the size difference. Like, I think Triple G is more of a natural 150, 160, 160 pound, 60-pound fighter than what Jacobs was. So that, I think, was a lot too that helped him. And I forgot about that too. The whole same day weigh dilemma too. Like, I don't remember word for word or exactly what the issue was, but I do remember hearing about Jacobs not weighing in, and then I think it went even into Canelo, right? I don't think there was a rehydration clause, but I think there was a lot of speculation that people were speculating that with Golovkin, I mean, with Jacobs and Canelo was the whole weight, because like he's a pretty big guy. So I mean, the same thing, look, so there was the swing rounds. I decided to go with Jacobs because I felt like he landed the more effective punches in those swing rounds, but in the swing rounds, it could have went either way. And that's the reason why I chose it not being a robbery, because imagine if I gave those swing rounds to Triple G, then I would at the end would have Triple G winning, because he did a lot of good things. There was there's a couple of things that I thought that were good to notate. What Triple G does really well is he does cut the ring off very well. I think we all know he does that. He has a really good jab. And he's just in the perfect range to be able to land punches and to get out of the way. And I think for like young fighters, even though Triple G might not be your favorite fighter, but I think like his style of fighting, they even compared him to to Chavez, saying, he's in there, he rolls the punches really well, jab, he knows how to get in there and do his work, and that was good to see from Golovkin. But again, like I said, the only reason why I didn't call this a robbery, because those swing rounds could have went the other way, and I could be saying that I thought Golovkin won this, but I felt again in those swing rounds that Jacobs, demeanor, now that you mentioned it, helped me decide, and then also the effectiveness of what Jacobs was doing in those swing rounds.
Man, I like this photo. Like, this is the last photo that you could see before Triple G faces Canelo and Canelo takes his soul. You know what I mean? You see how much spirit Triple G has in this photo.
Hey.
Steele is in the house from Nebraska. Thanks for joining us, man. All right. Well, hey, dude, let's talk a little bit more about like the current day Danny Jacobs. Because it looks like that he's in negotiations to fight Jaime Munguia coming up. And I wanted to get you guys' take on this. It looks like it's going to be at a catch weight of 164 pounds. So I want to know what you guys think about this particular fight and Danny Jacobs' new role in general, kind of transitioning to kind of being, well, I'll let you guys classify it. George, what do you think about all this, man? You're on mute, brother.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. Yeah, and it's funny because it just showed me too. You're on mute. I like this fight for Munguia because I think it has everything, all the ingredients to show him stepping up to the next level, right? Like Jacobs isn't he's only been knocked out once. He's been dropped a few times. So the ingredients, I think, for Munguia on this is I think he has a skill to actually do it. And unfortunately, we hate to see a lot of good fighters because, like, for me, Jacobs, I feel like it kind of resonated with me personally because, he's a cancer survivor, and my dad, lost his life to cancer. He resonated to me. He's like, man, you know what? I didn't even know that about this guy, and it just kind of became like my favorite fighter, one of the guys I like to watch because of that. Not only because, I think he's skilled, but also, because of my dad. And that was, so again, you hate to see like these some of these good fighters become a stepping stone or to gauge the next good fighters that are coming up, that are up and coming. But I like this fight, man. I like the Jacobs and Munguia fight. I don't know. Did they mention, I guess, the weight or where it would be? Because I mean, obviously, I think Jacobs is probably a little too small now to make 160 or
164 pounds.
Yeah, he might be a little bit small to make that. So I could see them, making it a catch weight. So, all good luck to Jacobs, but I think this is Munguia's time. And we had a couple shows back where we are pretty writing. We're all writing pretty high on Munguia, and this is that fight. Like I said, the perfect fight with the right ingredients to see where he goes to his next level. He looks impressive. Munguia was the person that we always thought who he's gonna be. So I like this fight, man, and we'll see what happens.
All right. So, Nopal, tell me, man, is it fair to say that Munguia is doing something that Jermall Charlo never dared to do, or am I just framing this conveniently?
I was gonna say that on my own, bro. It's like Charlo had a chance to fight Jacobs, but he never took it. And prior to that, he had this image out there that he would just fight anybody, right? People would call him a savage, and this guy will fight anybody. He wants everybody smoke. But it turns out he was just pretending, and he was just trying to pretend his way to a Canelo fight. And yeah, it is fair to say that Munguia's going to do something Charlo would probably never do, because Charlo would probably use the excuse, hey, Jacobs has nothing to offer me, man. He has nothing to offer me. Why should I even fight a guy like Benavidez? Why should I even fight why should I take a risk like that and put my Canelo meal ticket into danger? Why would I danger all that for this? So it is safe to say that. But at the same time, it is going to be a catch weight. So therefore, we know that Jacobs has always kind of flirted with this fine line of dehydrating himself and stuff like that. So that puts Munguia at an advantage. And I think that, I think it's still a good fight because Jacobs is bigger than Munguia. I think that Jacobs has been fighting his last fights at 168, and then the fight with Chavez was somewhere like a 170. I don't know. So he's probably gotten accustomed to that higher weight a little bit. So, I hope the fight is competitive. I know that, sometimes for these fighters, it's like, for example, Munguia is a kind of like bigger, so he's used to fighting the smaller guys a little bit. So, this is going to be a tough test, and it's going to give him the confidence needed to fight guys that are his same size. So I really like this fight, and, I appreciate this fight, and we'll see. Maybe Jacobs can pull it off, You never know. Maybe it's a draw. Maybe one of these guys gets knocked out, but I think it's a terrific fight for Munguia on his way to some tougher fights.
All right. And we got D Hodges in the house. Thanks for joining us, man. He says, salute. Run PMC. What do you think about all this, man?
I mean, I think it's just sort of more of the same that we're getting from Jaime Munguia. Like, I mean, some people might look at it as a step up. I mean, step up in the sense of the name, but I think Danny Jacobs is just a little too old, and I don't know if he has his complete heart in boxing, just based on his recent performances and just the sort of the effort he's put out in those performances. Like the Ryder fight last, it was like he had the fight there for the taking, and he just didn't take it. Rosado fight, I thought he lost. And then the Chavez fight, he was getting beat, and then Chavez just quit. So I just, I don't know. But I think Munguia, I mean, he needs to just go in and show out. It's going to be interesting since Andre Rozier used to train Saddam Ali, and he's going to be training Jacobs, I assume, since he trained him for his last fight. So against Munguia. So it'll be interesting to see if Andre Rozier has anything to offer offer Jacobs any insight. But I don't know. I mean, Munguia has to look good in this fight as well because he's definitely on the rise, or it appears to be on the rise. But um, I don't know. I mean, Munguia hasn't really impressed me just yet as well. So I guess it could be like a crossroads where it's like you have Danny Jacobs might be one of his last fights, and you have the prospect that has a bet that's just had a belt. So that's sort of like the how boxing is now. Like prospect level guys have belts now. So you have it like that. So it's gonna be interesting. I mean, obviously I'm gonna watch it, but I would pick if I were to pick one, I'd probably pick Jaime Munguia. Not because I think he's better than Danny Jacobs, just because I think where he's catching Danny Jacobs, and I don't know if Danny Jacobs has the ability to have the output, or is at least willing to lay it down the line to have the output, needing to beat a guy like Munguia.
Hey, man, those are some great points all around, dude. And want to give a shout out to D-Style Boxing, who's in the house, man. If y'all didn't have a chance to check out HCP 100, y'all need to go back and check that one out, man. We all had a good time. Lots of guests go on there. And, man, we were just reveling and what a good ride this has been. But, yeah, dude, I happen to think that Danny Jacobs is in a role that, I was curious about for a while because I've been thinking to myself just over like the last 5 years that, we don't really have those types of guys who hang around and where they're not necessarily like too long in the tooth and not necessarily washed, but kind of becoming gatekeepers of sorts. Like, and I found myself wondering when we would see those types of guys start cropping up, and I think Danny Jacobs is really one of those guys. He's in his mid-30s now. He's not getting beat up by anybody. He's getting like close decisions go his way, sometimes not as well, but he's still in it with these fights. And I don't know how long he can keep this going for, but I do think there's a role for people like that. Danny Jacobs, could potentially shoot himself into a title fight with any one decent fight these days. So, like, from his perspective, if he's still hungry, and, some people do think that he beat Ryder. I don't see it that way. I thought the fight was close, but John Ryder's very formidable. You go and watch all of his close fights against Smith, against Billy Joe Saunders. Like, Ryder's game, he's been game. So, I mean, it's not like John Ryder was this nobody, like a Saddam Ali or somebody like that. John Ryder's legit. So, Jacobs could sit there and justify it by saying, hey, well, I went overseas and, maybe I was a little bit jet lagged, or he could say whatever he wants to himself. In other words, you could say, oh, yeah, we could get you better. That was just, they could just justify it in their heads and be back and to face Jaime Munguia. I mean, that's a big risk, but Danny Jacobs, he's very seasoned. Like I think that like Munguia, I think it makes sense for him as well. Like he's used to fighting aggressive fighters. He's used to fighting a Mexican style. He's already fought Canelo. He's already fought Triple G, who supposedly fights Mexican style. He fought Mora. Like, I don't think that there's anything Munguia can bring to him that he hasn't seen before. It's just a matter of how much Danny Jacobs has left. So if you were to ask me who I think will win, I think Munguia should win this one. I think that this one could be like the last prominent fight that Danny Jacobs has, but it remains to be seen.
Yeah, you're right, man. Absolutely. Like I said, we hate to use that word. It's a disrespectful word, especially for someone that's respected like Danny Jacobs, to call him a stepping stone. But what other word can we use? It is what it is. I mean, he's very seasoned, and he could possibly even win this fight, just depending on if Munguia doesn't prepare correctly, or he doesn't prepare the way he should. But again, it's sad, but I still like Danny Jacobs, and if he was to win, I mean, who knows? He could possibly get in there for another belt, or who knows? Maybe he's fought on his own. I mean, I know people want to see an Andrade fight. I mean, why not? Why not in the in the future? Like if Jacobs becomes successful and Andrade wins, that could be a fight under Andrade's belt that people are looking for that can help him elevate. But again, I'm with you guys too. I feel I'm favoring Munguia to win this.
Oh, yeah. And Nano here says, I think Jacobs is a high-level, stay-busy fight. I'm patient, but Munguia needs to fight soon, a legit fight soon. Charlo, well, yeah, you said it, but Nando, we were talking about how, like, Danny Jacobs, even though he's kind of long in the tooth, like, he's still a legit guy. Like, we got to remember that, he's a guy who actually unified with Canelo. He's the guy who beat Deveryanchenko first. I think he's very decent, man. So, if he wants to continue his career, he doesn't seem like he's shot. He still seems very well spoken. He seems to have all his facilities intact, and he's somebody who made that Canelo money and is still hungry, man. So we'll see where it goes. You know what I'm saying? Ron, you got any final thoughts on your favorite fighter, Danny Jacobs, before we move on to the next subject?
Oh, I mean, he's had a great career. It's not that I don't think Jaron Jacobs is a skilled fighter. I do. I just think sometimes he lacks focus in his fights, and he at times just like even in his last fight, I don't think you should be happy with a loss, and he just seemed sort of satisfied with that. Rosado fight, he was acting like, of course he won, and like I just didn't like his real attitude with it. But obviously, he's very skilled at what he does. He was at one time one of the best in the world. So who am I to say he's not good at his job? If you're nitpicking as a fan, like I do sometimes, I just think he doesn't always have the intangibles, but that doesn't mean he's not a really skilled. It doesn't mean he has a great story. I just wish I could see more. Maybe it's because I wish I could see more from him because I know how skilled he is. That I wish I would see that like next year. I think that's probably what it is. Anyways, but it'll be a good fight. I'm favoring Munguia, but who knows? Sort of like what was that saying that D Style says? It's like I might not be good as I used to be, but it's like that one time you'll be as good as you were, or but Dan Jacobs might shock everyone and pull the upset and make another run at the title. Who knows?
And I wanted to also agree with Run real quick. We're waiting for that next gear. Because in little instances, you see that the tools are there for Jacobs to do something spectacular. But it just hasn't happened. Like even taking it back to the fight that we rescored. I mean, there was rounds in there where he looked really confident. Like for instances, and if he just kept that up the whole fight, you know, you can easily say that he could have won that fight easily, or got walked into a knockout. But you know what I mean. But nevertheless, you know, uh, he has the tools to do something spectacular, and we just want to see him do it. It almost seems like after the Canelo fight, it just became all about these paydays. You know what I mean? Like it's just all a business now, and we want to see a little bit more out of Jacobs. And we'll see. Maybe he brings it out in this Munguia fight.
He very well could. I want to give a shout out to Sly Tendencies. What's up, Chicano? Hey, man, thank you so much for joining us. Well, dude, let's get into this weekend's fight. One of the highlights. I wanted to take a look at Golovkin versus Murata. A little bit of a preview, man, and we got some people who can really break down a fight. George, let's start with you, man. Like, what do you think about this fight? And please give us your prediction, man.
Okay. Yep. Again, I just mentioned a little while ago. I'm not gonna say speculation, but it's happening right before our eyes that there is possibly a slow Triple G coming to slowing down. But after his last fight against Canelo, he had 3 fights, and one of the 3 fights it looked like his age was showing, and that was against Evrenchenko. But immediately after that one, he won by a knockout, and it was pretty impressive. But it's hard to really say. He is 40. He hasn't fought in at least over a year, so some inactivity could play a role in this. But for me, I would love to see Triple G win because I want to see the trilogy. I know, a majority of fans out there don't want to see the Canelo and Triple G, but I'm one that I would like to see and finally see that chapter finally closed and Canelo to finally, you know, be victorious over the trilogy. But Murata, from what I understand, he's an Olympian, gold medalist. Back with I think Anthony Joshua, Lomachenko. I think he's from that era as well of Olympic gold winners. But I don't think I've seen enough of Murata to be able to say, you know what, I'm pretty confident that Murata could pull this off. But I think it's all going to depend on what Triple G shows up for this fight. Um, if is Triple G, does he have any injuries? They showed a picture of him last week. He looks ripped. He's with his camp. He looks like he's ready. He looks in shape. He doesn't look like he's he doesn't look weight drained, but he looks like he's ready to go. So I think it's all going to depend on what Triple G shows up to this fight on Saturday. But I'm going with Triple G because I feel like he still has just enough to prove, but like on a very slow decline. So we'll see what happens with Triple G.
All right. And Rum PMC, what do you think about this fight, brother?
I'm glad it's happening because it was getting, just because the state of the world was getting pushed down the road a little, but I'm glad it's finally happening. Murata, I've only seen him fight a few times. Saw him fight both Brant fights, and then I saw him fight both Endom fights. But besides that, I haven't seen him fight. I mean, he's a decent boxer. I think. I mean, anything's possible, especially the Triple G being up there in age. But with Triple G's calling card being his power, I think, and that being the last thing to leave boxers, I think that serves him well, especially in this fight. Um, I do want to. I would like to see hopefully Triple G wins because even though I think the third Canelo Triple G fight is clearer that we know who's going to win, I I would still like to see it just from a boxing, like from like the casual side of my boxing fan. I'd want to see that fight because it's like one last hurrah. Could Triple G right what he's figured like he's been robbed twice? Can he finally get that victory? It's like sort of like that, like sort of like the general public narrative storyline. So I'd like to see it, and I was a fan of Triple G too. I mean, I think we unfortunately didn't really get to see Triple G's peak, like skill wise, when he was fighting top fighters. I think his peak was really when he first came to the U.S. when he was fighting like Proxa and like Matthew Macklin and those guys and Curtis Stevens. I think that was really like his peak. After that, I think he was like just slowly declining. We might not have seen it, but he was because he weight dreams himself to stay at 160. Like he's been at 160 for like almost all of his professional career. And you have interviews of Abel Sanchez saying like, "Oh, we can't let G eat too much or go up. We can't even have him uh, go up to 168, or even we would keep him there because or else he'll grow and he'll just not be able to make 160 anymore." So there definitely is, even though the might professional camp, there is definitely a struggle, I believe, for him to make weight. Not easy. Why did these guys after weigh-ins just pound him Pedialyte, water, Gatorade, or whatever the fluids? So I like to see him win. I lean to him to win, but you never know, especially in Japan. You might see if it's a close go Murata's way. But who knows? But I'm looking forward to it. Saturday is going to be packed with boxing, afternoon boxing at night. It's gonna be a good day.
You said it, man. I hope we see some Japanese ring card girls. I pulled this photo. I was like, all right, I can get down with that. A little something different. You know what I mean? Some pretty ladies walking around. It's all good. No, Paul, what do you think about this fight, man?
I don't really think too much of Murata. I never have. I just look at Triple G like this opportunistic, let me get the easy fight type dudes. You know what I mean? Like he jumps right out of bed for this fight. He's been having a hard on for this fight for what? For like 5-6 years. And Murata hasn't done much, to up his skills, because he's probably like a huge superstar in Japan, and you know, and I always just thought that Triple G's gonna walk through this guy. I mean, you do see him aging. Visibly, you can see his face. He's getting older and stuff, but I just still think that, like Run said, the power is the last thing to leave you. But they do say that Murata's he's pretty strong himself, so we'll see. He might be able to catch Triple G, but I doubt it. You know what I mean? He kind of looks like a big clumsy guy to me. You know what I mean? Um, I'm not giving him too much, but I'm always wrong. So who knows? Murata might be this absolute beast. Um, but I mean, I don't look at Triple G like this guy that would put himself in danger and put the Canelo payday at jeopardy, because um, these two last fights could possibly be the most important fights of his career. You know what I mean? So for him to put that at jeopardy, I just don't see, I don't think he ever would. So I view this as an easy fight for Triple G. And it's hard to say with Triple G. I do agree with Run. His peak, his physical peak, was probably when he came to the U.S. He started his amateur, like his pro career. He started it really late, like at 27. Basically the reason for that is, in those countries, they pay these amateurs to, like, that's their career, and they get paid by the government. So they're comfortable this whole time, not even knowing or paying attention to what's going on outside of their amateur career. They're fighting little guys that are like 16 years old, kind of just whooping on them. So these guys get comfortable, you know what I mean? And they're in this area of comfort, where they go in there. I mean, imagine a guy that's like 25, like Triple G, just fighting some kid that's like 17. Of course he's gonna whoop him. He's got all this experience, and so I think that carried over to boxing. And once he started making the big money and got out of Kazakhstan, he just, that comfort level went to a whole different area. And he's just whooping on these dudes that have no chance. So, you know what I mean? That right there just got him out of any possibility of ever seeing his peak, his real peak, because his level of competition didn't start getting any better until he was like, already past 35. That's when he fought Jacobs. And, that was a pretty close fight. And then after that, I mean, of course, the Canelo fights. And so it's hard to say. And then people want to say that that the dude's declining. No, how do you say that when, he barely finally decided to step up the level of competition? So it's very hard to look at Triple G's career and say anything definitive. It's hard to even say that he was on the decline when he was fighting Canelo, because at the same time, his physical peak might be about to decline, but at the same time, his professional boxing experiences is getting a little more and more, because he's finally fighting the different level of competition. So it's hard to say, you know what I mean? But I am looking forward to this fight. What I am not looking forward to is having to wake up so damn early, 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning. But we'll see what happens, man. I might have to just catch it on the replay. We'll see.
Man, I didn't realize it was going to be that early. I want to give a shout out to MMA Sucks. He says you can't discredit that. SoCal Boxing, new subscriber. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, dude, all you guys did a pretty good job of breaking down the fight how I see it. Like, I really don't want to add too much to it other than saying that Nopal, it's kind of like how you said, man. Like, I really don't see anything special with Murata. Like, I think that it's going to be a real estate battle early. What I'm going to be looking for is to see who decides to keep pushing on the front foot. And the thing is, I think Murata can get lured into a firefight, but he's never really fought at this level, even though Golovkin is pretty old now. Like, you could still make the argument. Some people still make the argument that they find this dude to be undefeated. So, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, Murata's really stepping up in class, and I'm certain that he's never faced any type of power like this. And yes, Murata's fighting on his home turf, but I mean, who knows? Golovkin could go in there with like a possible like Godzilla aura, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see like if Murata can rise to the occasion. I think the energy will be good at the very least, and I think that the Japanese fans could embrace Golovkin. Like they embrace other fighters, other cultures, and not just in boxing, but like other sports, other forms of entertainment. They're very appreciative people, in my opinion. So I'll be curious to see what the crowd reaction is like. I'll be curious to see if they're like a more of a silent crowd in general or like a loud crowd. But I think that the momentum will go with whoever's winning that fight. So I think that Triple G can win the crowd. So I'm excited for this one, and if he does win, it's like you said, George, we'll line up for that trilogy, and that's going to be some fun in that lead up because, we haven't done the Canelo versus Triple G rescores yet, but people still talk about those fights all the time. They were super entertaining. Trilogies are great, and we don't have a definitive ending, which we could possibly get. So I am rooting for Triple G to win this fight. I've always liked Triple G, always have. And Nando here says that Triple G is the exact same age as Pavlik, Hopkins, Winky, Taylor, Calzaghe, etc. Were his real contemporaries. Then William Boxing, thanks for joining us. He says, salute. Did you guys hear that Reynoso said that they have a clause in the contract that if Triple G loses, they can go elsewhere, and said that that they will pursue better beef versus Smith winner. You know what? I did hear that. George, what do you think about this comment? I think it's great news. What do you think?
Yeah, no, actually, Julian messaged me this morning, like at 5 a.m. He's pretty much saying the same thing that he read somewhere that, and I told him, I was like, look, you can't obviously believe everything you read. There's got to be a source. It could be like someone's web, or somebody's channel, like, hey, so-and-so has an injury. So he said supposedly that Triple G might be favoring like a shoulder injury or something, but that was the comment that if Triple G loses or is injured, there will be no fight. But we looked it up again, and it doesn't say anything about Triple G being injured, because I saw like a picture last week. Like I was saying, that they had a Triple G at the beach with his camp. He looks fit. He don't look like anything's wrong. But I agree, man. Why are you gonna sit around and wait when you got Better Beef and Smith that are going to be fighting in June? So that'd be awesome to see. But let's see what happens, man. And that's still even a really good fight. So the winner better
Yeah,
be.
and you know, George, there's other things to consider, bro. Uh, you know, Canelo might not even win his next fight, so that's up in arms too. You know, we're
That's
not
very
sure if
true.
we're not sure if he's going to win the Bivol fight, so it might even go the other way where Golovkin actually beats Murata and Canelo loses the Bivol. So it's kind of we got to keep our eye on this because we don't know what's going to happen. You know, with these competitive fights, you know, and but it would be a dream situation for Canelo to win that Bivol fight and go on a fight. Better be it, but you know,
Yeah,
we just don't know. You know,
and that would be more ideal. I feel like because I mean, if Triple G and Canelo hypothetically win, right? Is that fight at 168 or is it 175?
Damn, I mean
I
that's a good point. I
that's
mean,
true.
yeah, I
Ball's
mean,
in Canelo's court, right? He could just say, "Hey, Triple G, you
yeah.
gotta come up to let's fight at cruiserweight, bro." That'd be weird.
well,
Yeah,
you know
no,
what? Like,
yeah,
I think either way it would serve Triple G. I mean, the dude. I mean, if you're like 5'10" and you're super muscular, like you'd probably feel a lot better at 175 or 168. No matter what, it's like him going down and staying at 160. I mean, it's probably a struggle for him. Like he might get a surge of energy if he moves up in weight.
yeah, very true. That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
of course. Yeah,
Want
just
to give a
like when
shout out to
Jacob.
Remy, who's in the house. Remy, what's up, brother? SoCal Boxing wants to know, is that Canelo as an Aztec? You're damn right it is, man. I hope you like the painting, And then he also says, if it goes the distance, for sure, Bivol is not getting the decision. He needs a KO. Well, I could see this being one of those contentious fights where, people think, could have went either way, could have went either way. And, Canelo gets the benefit of the doubt in those close fights. And I could see this being a new era of people getting pissed off for Canelo getting the decision. But I don't know, I think Bivol's got to try to earn the win, just like Canelo does need to earn the win. So I could see this being a little bit of a messy fight as well, actually.
Yeah, it's gonna have all that in there.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, dude, I want to thank everybody for showing up, and I want to preview what we're going to be scoring next on our next rescore. Since we have Spence versus Ugas next week, what I want to do is have us rescore Porter versus Ugas. A lot of people say that this one is a bona fide robbery. When I saw this fight, I felt like Ugas clearly won. Most people have Ugas winning this fight, but we can all take a look at it and see if it was actually a robbery. So does anybody have any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
That's a good one. That's gonna be, and it's hard to even score a Sean Porter fight in general. So this is gonna be fun. I'm with you too, Chicano. I thought Ugas won this.
Yeah, I
Talk
like this
about
fight,
someone
man.
using head movement and not doing anything. I'm just kidding.
Oh, yeah, man. So this one should be fun. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. This is the Chile Crew signing off. Peace.
Peace.